So kind of the starting place we want to kick off here is what causes labor overruns. There's obviously a multitude of different things that can contribute to it on a project, but typically it kind of boils down to the same kind of underlying causes. The first one we see most often is the wrong equipment or tools to do an activity. And this one is always tough because it's really born out of kind of a good place by the project manager or the foreman or the superintendent. Usually what happens is they come across an activity, they realize they need to buy a special tool for it or rent a piece of equipment, but that's not in the budget. So rather than going out and spending that money for the right piece of equipment or the right tool, they say, hey, you know what? We can kind of make do with what we currently have. That's 95% as good. We'll make it work. And then, you get to the end of the activity and you end up spending way more on labor inefficiency than you would have spent if you just bought the right tool to begin with. We used to refer to it as penny wise and pound foolish, stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime. And that's something we see a lot that kind of causes those labor overruns. The next two kind of go hand in hand. It's missing information and missing material. And this one's obviously pretty straightforward. If the guys in the field don't have the right information on what they're building, or they physically don't have what they need to build, then obviously you're going to experience delays, and those delays are going to manifest in additional labor costs. But it kind of goes to a deeper level than that when you talk about missing information and missing material. There's that kind of very obvious cost we just discussed, but then it also kind of manifests itself in a second manner where it makes it very difficult for the field crew to plan out their activities. If they don't know, what the information is or when material would show up, they really can't do that day-to-day planning. And when you're not kind of planning out on a day-to-day basis, you're not kind of setting goals and benchmarks that you need to hit. And that can kind of manifest itself in a certain uncertainty that will kind of delay your overall operations and contribute to higher labor costs as well. The next one we see very frequently is scope creep. I think this is something every contractor has experienced. You sign up to do A, B, and C on a project, and then you little by little find that you are doing A, B, C, and D. And it's something that can happen, very, very casually, and it's almost like these small little edge cases done time and time again that really add up at the end of the project. One of my first projects I was involved in, we were doing excavation for an underground vault. And within our scope, we were meant to stockpile the dirt right next to the excavation. However, when we were on the site, the general contractor asked if we could kind of move it to the corner of the site, which was maybe only 100 yards away from where we were doing the excavation. We didn't think much of it at the time. We said, yeah, you know what, that doesn't seem like a big deal. We'll just take it down there. Well, little did we know, that extra 100 yards doing it dozens of times over and over and over again throughout the course of the project really adds up. And by the end of the activity, we ended up running about 20% over in our labor. So that's a good example of how these kind of very small things and that little bit of scope creep can really kind of build up over the course of a project. The next one is kind of unforeseen conditions. I think the one that immediately pops in everyone's mind is weather delays, or just weather kind of impacting the quality of the site. If it's muddy out there, you're having to spend a lot of time doing dewatering or other tasks. That can really kind of slow down your overall production rate and make everything less efficient. However, it's not always just weather. There can be kind of other things that you may not notice right away. Another project I was involved in early in my career was we were involved in building landscaping for a project where you had kind of the start of the site at the bottom of a hill and the rest of the site at the top of the hill. And we went about 20% over our overall labor budget over the course of the project. And kind of at the end of the project, we were digging into all the data, trying to figure out what happened. And what we ended up identifying was every morning, the guys had to walk about 45 minutes to bring all the equipment and tools from the bottom of the hill up to the top of the hill. And, that kind of staging process of having to lug a bunch of equipment, up a steep hill, really kind of contributed to the overall labor costs. And that's something none of us thought of at the beginning of the job. So kind of those unforeseen conditions, things you're not even thinking about in the bid phase, those can kind of rear their ugly head over the course of a project. And then the last one, of course, is waiting on other contractors. This is something that I think a lot of contractors struggle with. It's a huge part of construction, right? That coordination aspect and making sure that you are kind of properly coordinated with all the other trades on the site. So they're not delaying you. So if you need to kind of roll right into the next activity, you're not having that kind of standby time, twiddling your thumbs, waiting for that next person to kind of give you the space you need to do what you need to do. Those are kind of the main culprits we tend to see that contribute to labor overruns. Now, the most important thing that I want to point out here is what's not on the list, okay? What you don't see listed here is that the guys in the field are moving too slow. That very rarely is the underlying cause of labor overruns. And that's important to note because what we'll see with all these is most of them are preventable and they're fixable. So that means if you really want to get a good handle on your labor costs, it's not necessarily about telling the guys in the field they have to move faster. It's more about catching the problem that's contributing to the labor overruns and fixing it before it kind of gets away from you and snowballing.